To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Bill?
Here.
Holly? Here.
Here.
Glenn? Here.
Motion to waive the reading and adopt the pre-read minutes.
Motion?
All in favor?
Aye.
Cybersecurity, we are going other avenues than the IT place quote. Lynn, with an ordinance.
This is the ordinance that we sent to the Plan Commission. It's a proposal, actually, we sent to the Plan Commission for them to hold the public hearing. It went through tech review, and tech review had some questions. They sent it back for the towns to be able to answer. So Joe Jenner is representing the towns on that issue. I recuse myself. So as far as I know, Joe's just reached out to everybody for updates on addressing the Plan Commission's concerns. So the February public hearing, from what I understand, has been canceled, and they're planning on holding it in March.
Quotes have been received for 117 West Ripley. Commonwealth project updates. 2025 Community Crossings project. Most of the concrete work has been completed. Commonwealth completed an inspection on December 23rd. Minor deficiencies were noted, and the contractor has been directed to make corrective actions. However, the weather will prohibit most of this work, as well as the pending asphalt paving. Motion to approve Commonwealth's claim of $8,200 for construction and engineering RPR.
I'll make the motion.
All in favor? Aye. 2026 community crossings. Osgood was not selected for the 2026 community crossings. There were changes. NDOT enacted multiple changes this year for the program. Further changes are planned with community crossings matching grant, which will reduce the number of agencies competing for funds. Time frame for these changes is unknown. For the 2026 program, NDOT received 400 applications requesting a total of $237 million with an available budget of $100 million. Commonwealth completed the final design and reviewed plans with the town. The plan is to resubmit this project at the next community crossings matching grant application opening. Motion to approve Commonwealth's claim for preliminary design and final design for the amount of $39,000.
Motion.
All in favor? Aye. Water and lead service line project. Service line inspections will continue throughout the coming months. These inspections will be conducted by Commonwealth engineers with a representative from the water utility. These inspections will require access to the interior of homes to identify service line materials. A public notice will be mailed to homes requiring inspection. Eligible homeowners must sign a right of entry form for replacement to proceed. Kyle Morton will be replacing Mike Cawthorn for the service line inspections in Osgood in the coming weeks. A second round of letters was sent to homeowners for unknown service line materials on January 12th. How many of those were there?
That I'm not sure.
Water improvements, lead service line projects were advertised for bid on January 6th. Commonwealth held a pre-bid meeting with contractors on January 15th, which included a site visit to the water treatment plant. Bids will be received for both projects on February 5th. Construction expected to begin in March of 26. Commonwealth is working with Lynn to obtain an easement for a proposed valve on private property of 642 Wilson Street. Motion to approve Commonwealth's claim of $37,500 for design on water utility improvement project.
I'll make the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to approve Commonwealth's claim for $59,979 for design, erosion control plan, easement assistance, legal, financial assistance, field investigation, survey, service line evaluation.
Motion.
All in favor? All right. Wastewater utilities, preliminary engineering report and asset management plan, water preliminary engineering report and asset management plan. Plan continue to be assembled to meet the March 31st deadline. Ordinance.
Do you want to do anything with the ordinance, or,
Oh.
I mean, it's the bond ordinance that they have up next. I can muddle my way through it. I did not draft this. Yeah, I didn't draft this, but yeah, if you want to go ahead, that's fine.
You want to give an overview?
Yeah, so the bond ordinance, so that's you'd be introducing the bond ordinance tonight, and that would be to authorize the town to borrow money through SRF to borrow the funds to finance the lead service line project and the water treatment plant projects. It sets the maximum interest rate, I believe at 5%, and then it allows for project costs, I think it was 6.3, up to 6.3 million, which was the current project cost estimates plus an additional 20% contingency. But the terms in the bond ordinance, they're pretty standard as far as these go. Anything to add to that?
No, I mean, it's a parameters bond ordinance, so it sets the max out. I mean, we're going to close on the interest rate on the loan is supposed to be either 0% for the lead service line or 2-point-something% for the 1-year bond for the improvements. And most of it's 80% is grant funded, anticipated.
Yeah, about 82%.
So, and the reason we have the full 6.3 million is even the grants will be forgivable on anticipation notes, so they're loans, which is why we have that full amount in there. So that sets out your fund balance requirements, which are no different than you already have. Really just allows you to move forward, doesn't lock you into actually moving forward with the project, just allows you to move forward.
So for this, they need you to approve it on first reading.
So motion to approve ordinance 2026-1 on the first reading.
I'll make the motion.
All in favor? Aye. Second reading will be set for February 17th. Which rates to pass? I myself am in favor of alternative 3.
Did I take a motion to adopt one of these?
So there's two separate ordinances. So the bond ordinance that you just passed, like they said, it's to establish the parameters of the bond. So that one's kind of like its own entity, but they needed you to do that today, just to keep on the timeline. Then for the next one is actually for the rate increase, and that's the one where you need to determine the exhibit first.
We can go through the break study if you want.
That's fine.
Explain the different exhibits.
Yeah, I think copies of our rate study out a little bit earlier. I can go through that. I'm going to start on page 4, actually. And so you're kind of starting with where your utility is or has been. And so we looked at your test year for the water utility for the 12 months ending June 30th, 2025. The first thing we looked at was the cash balances of the utility on June 30th, and that there's different minimum balances that are required by your outstanding bond ordinances for prior bonds you've issued. So kind of operating funds, the minimum is 2 months of operating expense, which is approximately $150,000 for the Osgood water utility. And so that fund was overfunded, or had funds about $428,000 above that minimum requirement. The bond and interest accounts, so you have to make monthly transfers to your bond and interest account each month so that you can make the bond payment when it comes due. And so that minimum there was about $14,000, and so that was overfunded by about $141,000 as well. And the debt service reserve account, you have to set aside funds to pay the debt in case there's not enough funds in the bond and interest account. And so that account was also overfunded by about $20,000. And then the improvement funds, there's not a strict requirement for that, but kind of the recommendation is about 1 year's depreciation, which is about $172,000. And so there's about $70,000 less in the improvement fund than 1 year's depreciation. And then the meter deposit fund, that's fully restricted to return back to customers. So overall, the whole utility you're about $500,000 in excess of your minimum required balances and recommended balances. And so
I wouldn't say, I think that's an appropriate amount. I wouldn't say you're overfunded. You're adequately funded, especially knowing how old the system is and the information.
Right.
right, those are just the minimums. And so page 4 and 5, it goes on to show how we've calculated those minimums. But then as we go on to page 6, this is a schedule of estimated project costs and funding. And this is for that lead service line project and the treatment plant improvements project. And so I know there's a lot going on in this schedule, but kind of the first 3 columns on the left are for the lead service line project. SRF is providing some grant funding. And so that's kind of that second column I have in the lead service line project. Near the bottom and the estimated project funding, it shows $2.5 million as a lead service line forgivable band. So SRF would give a grant funding in the form of that forgivable band of $2.5 million for the lead service lines. And then the remaining amount, the $672,000, you can finance over 35 years at a 0% interest rate. So very favorable terms for that as well. So overall, there's about 78% of the lead service line project is going to be financed through grant with SRF's package. The next 3 columns for the treatment plant improvements project have that separated out as well for what's going to be band forgivable funding through SRF, and they're offering about $1,750,000 for that. And then the rest, the $269,000, would be financed through a 20-year loan at their subsidized interest rates. And so that project, that'd be about 87% grant funded. So overall, when you look at both projects together, you have $4,250,000 of forgivable bands, with the remaining amount, a little more than $900,000 being funded through bonds. So overall, about 82% would be financed through those forgivable bands. And these are the estimated project costs that we had received from Commonwealth. These will be, we'll have to update this once we get those bids in on February 5th.
This is being bid as one project, correct?
What was that?
This is being bid as one, it's 2
I
separate
believe
projects.
it's 2.
They were bidding at us too. Yeah, we're financing it as one package.
Probably SRF's got 2 different pots of money it's coming from.
The next few pages show proposed amortization schedules for the different proposed bonds. Page 7, this is $269,000. We're proposing to borrow to finance the water treatment plant upgrades. We show level debt service over 20 years, and this at an assumed interest rate of 3.17%.
So the interest rates include a 50 basis point cushion, which rates are dropping, so likely the interest rate will be under 3%.
The next page, on page 8 and 9, and that shows a post amortization schedule of $672,000 to finance the rest of the lead service line project. You can see here the assumed interest rate is at 0%. And we show that with level debt service as well over the 35 years. Then as we go on to page 10, the next few pages, these are the amortization schedules of your outstanding debt. So 10 is the 2010 Series A bonds. On page 11, we have the 2010 Series B bonds. On page 12 and 13, there's the 2019 bonds. And then on page 14, we show a schedule of proposed combined bond amortization with all the outstanding debt, along with the additional debts. And so when you add in the additional debt here, we're showing the maximum annual debt service is about $215,000, which occurs in 2030. But as those bonds will be paid off over time, if you go to page 15, you see there's some room. The debt starts dropping off as bonds are paid off, and there'll be room for additional debt service out there starting in about 2040, 2046 to 2050 is when it starts dropping off there. And we show the final maturity December 1st, 2060 for that 35. Excuse me. As we go on to page 16, we're looking at the estimated operating expenses of the utility. So what we did in the first column on page 16 is we showed what the test year expenses were, which was the 12 months ended June 30th, 2025. Through talking with Tammy, we made some adjustments to the test year, known adjustments that we know are coming in 26 and into the future to come up with estimated operating expenses that we could set our rates on. We also added 3 years of inflation as well. So that's the unforeseen contingencies and inflation. We added a 3% inflationary factor for each of those years. So by doing this, this should build operation and maintenance expenses into your user rates out through 2028 with those inflationary increases. As we go into the next couple pages, it shows more detail on the different adjustments that we made to the expenses. So the first adjustment on page 17 is for salaries and wages to reflect the current staffing levels, pay rates, as rates increase each year. And adjustments 2 and 3 for FICA and PERF, those are based on the new salaries and wages estimate to calculate what the FICA and PERF will be for the estimated salaries. Made a similar adjustment for health insurance to reflect the most recent premium. Then on page 18, we did a similar thing for liability insurance to increase the premium for that. Adjustment 6, allowance for rate study. That's to pay for a rate study, and we assumed about every 3 years. So at an average expense of about $15,000. So on an annual basis, that'd be about $5,000 each year. And then adjustment 7, that's just showing the unforeseen contingencies and inflation, adding additional 3% annual allowance. So that gets us back for a second. On page 16, overall, your test year expenses were about $860,000. Kind of through the adjustments we made, we got up to about $920,000 for 2026, $950,000 for 2027, and then $977,000 for 2020. So we take these numbers, jump in the page. Sorry, go on to page 19.
What page are you on now? I'm sorry.
Page 19. Sorry.
Oh, it says you're flipping. You're good.
This is the utility capital improvement plan, and this is what we got from Commonwealth. And what we did, Commonwealth's utility improvement plan, I think there was a number of projects that were listed as kind of immediate needs. And so we listed those in 2026 for when those would be paid for. And then the other projects that we have listed there, they kind of listed out each year. And so taking that averaged over the whole 5-year period, that comes out to $534,000 a year, which is rather high. But that's what they showed in their capital improvement plans. I just want to include that here as well. But then going on to page 20, this is where we kind of bring together all these other schedules to kind of compute the user rates. So we're showing 3 different alternatives. I'll start with the first one. But we start at the top with operation and maintenance expenses. So that's that $977,000 that we had on page 16 for the adjusted O&M. And then we include kind of the outstanding debt service next. So we have like the 2010A bonds, about $103,000, the 2010B bonds of $6,000 annually, and the 2019 bonds of $65,000 annually. And then we added in the proposed bond, the proposed debt as well for the current projects. And so the 20-year bond, that's adding $18,600 of debt service, and the 35-year bond, that's adding $20,000 of debt service annually. And then the next section for the debt service reserve, you're still funding the reserve related to the 2019 bonds. And so you're currently setting aside $4,200 to fund the reserve for those 2019 bonds. But then when you issue the new debt, you have to fund a debt service reserve related to those as well. And that is, you have 5 years to fund that reserve. And so you have about $3,700 a year for the 20-year bond and $4,000 for the 35-year bond. And then last here, we have the replacements and improvements. This is the number that changes between the different alternatives. In alternative 1, we kind of set replacements and improvements at kind of the minimum to ensure that you would meet debt service coverage, which I'll come back to the debt service coverage at the bottom when I get to the bottom here. So that's our total annual revenue requirements. The first alternative, we're showing about $1,265,000. That's what it takes to run the utility and pay all the debt and do replacements and improvements each year. We then subtract a couple non-recurring revenues that the utility has, such as penalties, reconnect fees, other income, and interest income. And so your net revenue requirements that need to be funded through user rates is $1,237,000 in that first alternative.
So with the changes being, so if you look at the total annual revenue requirements, really the only change for alternative 1, 2, and 3 all go back to the replacement improvements.
Yes,
Yep,
that's
just to
correct.
clarify. Okay.
Yes. And then in the next section for the annual receipts, so we look at kind of the sales that you had in the test year. We say normalized sales because you had the rate increase, you had the annual, I think it was 2.9 or 3% increase each year. So we normalized for that rate increase. So that was $997,000 that you had in the test year, plus an additional $96,000 for fire protection, about $7,000 for bulk water sales. So the total receipts was about $1.1 million in the test year. So in alternative 1, there's a shortfall about $136,000, which is a 12.4% increase that would be needed. To go back to like the difference between the different alternatives, so the replacements and improvements, yeah, that's what's different between the 3 alternatives. And the first one, we were setting it to just get coverage to 135%, meaning you can pay your debt service 1.35 times. Kind of your bond documents, they set a minimum threshold of 125%. And so the lowest we would recommend doing or setting rates based on is 135% to give a little bit of cushion there, because you never know what will actually happen year to year. The second alternative, we show replacements and improvements at $83,000, which is based on how much you've spent historically on replacements and improvements over the last 3 years. And then alternative 3, we're showing $172,000 as replacements and improvements, which is based on depreciation of what your annual depreciation would be based on your utility plan and service.
I guess I will note that none of these include the $534,000 average that was in your capital improvement plan here, just felt like that's too high. So, because that was coming up with a significant rate increase. But, that's no different than other utilities. You have improvements you need to do. You just have to decide what you can afford. So, and even a lot of utilities don't even fund depreciation. So to note that.
Yeah, and I will note as well, this operation and maintenance disbursements, 978,000, that goes through 2028. So this kind of shows what the rates would be if we adopted that all today. There's 12% in the first alternative, 14% in the second alternative, and 22% in the third. On the next page, on page 21, we kind of show what that would look like for alternative one if we phased it in over 3 years. And so, I mean, how we did that is we changed the replacements and improvements number in each phase. And you'll see, so it's less in phase one and phase two and kind of builds up to the full amount in phase three. And we also show the operation and maintenance disbursements. Phase one would kind of correspond with 2026, so it's a little bit less, and then we add in a 3% inflationary increase in phase two, for assuming that's in 2027, and then another 3% in phase three in 2028. But if you come down to the bottom, you can see those 3 rate increases over 3 phases would be 5% in the first phase, 3.7% in the second, and 3.3% in the third. The other thing to note is that this phase one increase, this is in addition to the increase that you just had this January. So I believe you had a 3% increase. It'd be an additional 5% on top of that 3%.
Can you speak to any of the key factors in phase one, phase two, and phase three? Just the total annual revenue requirements. I think you did a good job of saying, but if you kind of speak to like the key factors, what differentiates between those amounts, or how you got that?
Yeah, I think I spoke on the O&M. So the operation maintenance disbursements, that increases each year 3% for a 3% annual inflationary factor. In phase three, that gets you back to like that the full amount that we were showing on the prior page. The other thing that changes slightly, the proposed debt service, like the proposed 20-year bonds and 35-year bonds. So the 20-year bond, it shows $7,100 as debt service in phase one. As you start paying debt service, it's a little bit less in the beginning because you don't pay interest, or you don't pay principal at the very beginning. You're just paying principal for the first payment or two. So that debt service phases in a little bit. And then the replacements and improvements, that's the other one that changes. We set the first phase, the replacements and improvements, to get to 130% coverage. And we did the same thing in phase two as well. We don't really feel comfortable recommending less than 130%. And then in phase three, we have to get up to 135% coverage.
You have less for capital improvements each year, but it'll help ease the burden on the ratepayers with the rate increases more smoothly layered in.
Yeah, and I don't have it, and we don't have it in this schedule, but when we looked at alternative two, it'd be a 5% increase in phase one, and then 4.3% in phase two and three. And alternative three was a 7% increase in each phase.
Thank you for that. I would like to know the
Sure.
method behind the madness, or whatever.
Certainly is.
Yes. Page 22, this just kind of explains our assumptions and our methodology for how we came up with those numbers. And then page 23, that is a graph of kind of comparison of different residential bills for other communities in the area. So kind of the blue bars are other surrounding communities. We have kind of have the lowest Sunman at 29.33, and this is based on a 4,000 gallon bill residential customer. And in the yellow bars, we're showing Osgood. So currently, with your 3% increase that you just did in 2026, the rate is $40.84. Alternative one, you're showing $45.90 for Osgood, all the way up to $50 for that third alternative.
It's probably not really fair to have the full increases shown here because it's at a point in time and other utilities have probably raised their rates. So we can adjust this for the public.
Snapshot in time.
Yeah.
Right, those rates would get you up to 2028, and that's comparing it to other communities' rates today.
And you're funding a $7 million project. So 6.3.
I see your disclaimer as of December 23rd, 2025. So
Greensburg
Duly
may be
noted.
going up $6 in the next 3 years. We don't know.
Certainly could.
Page 24 was just a schedule of current rates and the adopted rates. It's probably better to look at what we had and have in the rate ordinance. So we have a very similar schedule of rates, but in the rate ordinance, we included 3 different versions of the rate schedule. One for each of the 3 alternatives that we just spoke through. And so that's something that you need to, before you introduce the rate ordinance, you'd want to decide which rate schedule you would want to introduce. And the one thing to kind of be aware of there is since the project hasn't been bid yet and you're not receiving bids on February 5th, when you introduce rates, you can't adopt anything higher than what you introduce. You can always adopt rates that are lower. And so if you're asking me, I would recommend do the third alternative just because it's the highest one. And in case the project costs come in lower, come in higher, we don't have to reintroduce the rate ordinance in case the project costs come in higher.
The downside to that is you do have to advertise the rates that you introduce. So you would be advertising the higher, but it does save you in time and having to reintroduce a rate and go through the process again if bids do come in.
So when those bids come in, we'll redo the rate study. We'll just plug in the new project costs to calculate the final rates. And plug that into what's in.
And hopefully the costs come in just like they are.
Thank you. I'm glad you went in depth into that. One thing that I like about option 3 is the flexibility it gives us on infrastructure improvements. It's something we've kind of struggled with the last few years, finding money to do certain things. I know we did a rate adjustment, 4 years ago, and we kind of struggled since then because I don't think we were aggressive enough.
3% each year, beginning of each year.
I don't think we're aggressive enough. In my opinion, we weren't aggressive enough looking back. And I think we've struggled. The department struggled because of that. So I'm in favor of alternative 3.
Are you doing the vote tonight? Let me get back to the agenda. Let me take that.
First reading of it.
Okay, first reading, okay. Second reading is February, okay.
So at your February meeting, what you would do is you'll have to have a public hearing on this first.
You have to know which one of these
Right.
tonight. Because you're doing the first reading on it.
And it's better to aim higher than what we just heard than aim too low and then
Right.
get stuck. Moving towards it.
I'm very experienced with that.
Agree with option 3. What are your thoughts, Bill? Year 1.
I mean, everything is continuing up and continuing higher, and we've raised rates and everything, so I mean, I'd like to stay as inexpensive as possible.
Yes, I understand where you're coming from, Bill. My concern was we raised them last time and it wasn't enough. That's just my position on it. But this project is huge. We're getting, what, 83% free money? Which is, from what I've been told, is unheard of.
You have and getting a 0% loan and a 2.7% 20-year loan, I mean, you're not going to get a better financing package.
And we can always pare this back.
Yeah.
If our funding, even a year from now, if our funding is better than expected, we can pare this back. Okay.
Let me make sure I'm clear. Here. If I'm understanding you correct, you want to go high just in case. But let's say the bids come back and they're 80% of what was estimated. You can bring that number back down, right?
Yes. You could even choose alternative one if you want. That doesn't help you get the capital improvements that you're talking about. The other ones outside of what you're financing.
But if we go low, it hurts us, we can't go higher.
You can't go higher if the bids come in high. Well, you can, you just have to go through the rate docs, and we are supposed to close with SRF.
So we got to pay you guys again to come back in
That's where
and
my thinking
go through
is,
this again.
like,
Is
yeah.
that correct?
What do you mean?
If we have to redo, then we need to bring you guys back into the picture.
Not at all. It wouldn't take us much time.
I know, I'm just teasing about it.
Bill would have it done in a half.
I was translating Bill.
When do we need to close by?
So SRF has us closing
March
March
7th.
12th.
So it's a pretty quick closing.
So with that, they want to pre-close. Sorry, or SRF is looking to have everything buttoned up and submitted to them by February 12th. So that's why. Trying to get this.
And if you have to hold 2 meetings starting again, it'd be hard to meet that. Go higher.
So what I'm understanding is it'd be better for us to pass the highest one now. If the bids come in under and council decides, we can always lower this rate increase.
Certainly.
But we can't raise it if the bids come in.
You can't, you just have to start your procedure over, you're going to miss your
sure.
closing date.
Okay. So we need to. Initially, advice is to go with option 3.
So we would recommend that.
So motion to adopt option 3 for rate. The new rates for Osgood water utility.
And we'll revisit in February for the second.
Yeah, we'll
After
revisit
the
after the
bids.
bids come in,
Yeah, as it's come in.
and we can revise down at that point.
Correct.
Motion?
I'll make the motion knowing that I think it's in the best favor to go higher. If the bids come in slower, I think it's going to hinder us. If we go smaller and put ourselves in a box and things happen, and then we have to restart the whole process over again, it doesn't do anyone good. It's a waste of time, money, energy. So that's why I'll say option 3.
If we miss the closing date, we lose out on how much forgivable money?
$4 million.
$4 million of money we don't have to pay back. I'll second the motion. All in favor, adopt rate structure 3?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
So, I know it's a little late in the game, but in February, we'll come back and revisit it and review, correct?
Yep.
Well, that'll be the final say where we end up, right?
This is the first reading.
Okay, sounds good, thank you.
Second reading will be February 17th. Thank you very much, guys. Reynolds grant applications to be signed and submitted for repainting of streetlights, annual tree and mulch maintenance, Oktoberfest Community Festival, preventive maintenance and
More different.
upkeep of the concrete wall at Marshall Covers.
We need to go back.
Just to make sure, it sounded like you were just approving the exhibit, so
Oh,
you'll want to
okay.
now do first reading on ordinance 2026-2 with that exhibit being the.
Do you want to
So
read
number
that,
8.
Lynn, so it's worded properly?
So this is basically establishing, it's a rate increase, so it's establishing your rates based on the third option exhibit that you just approved. So I just need a motion to approve ordinance 2026-2.
I need the motion.
And a second.
I'll second.
And a vote.
All in favor? Ayes. That's good to be. Reynolds grant applications, motion to approve the applications and sign.
I'll make the motion.
Seconds, all in favor? Southeastern Indiana Regional Planning Commission is requesting our appointment to the 2026 Board of Directors. Motion to approve Stephanie back to Services Board of Directors.
And I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All in public. Marshall.
Yes, that's me. So in December, we had 52 calls for service, 4 traffic stops, 1 citation issued, 9 ordinances served, 7 warnings issued. 8 agency citizen assists responded to 3 accidents or EMS assists, and had 28 criminal calls for service with 1 arrest. I have a new contact, NDOT, for the radar signs. They are starting to move us through the permitting process. So hopefully
Do
we
they know
can,
what the hangup was, or just,
I think it was people leaving NDOT is my understanding, because I've got a whole new person I'm dealing with now, so.
and both sides of town, north and south?
Yep.
And so, where the schools is, where will the towns be on the north
I
side?
would say the towns will be just south of the school zone where it drops to 30 mile an hour from the 45. So they'll probably be,
See how the schools.
I say
tell
they'll
them
be on
what
either
they-
side of the street on the north side.
Now, will your permit allow you to move these?
I'm hoping. Say, I don't know if it'll let me move them on the 350.
That's what I was wondering.
I'd say, but I'll ask about that. I'll shoot them.
Because are these stationary and fixed to a pole?
They're fixed to the existing 30 mile an hour sign, so that way we don't have to put a pole in. The solar panel goes on top of the sign, the radar sign goes below the existing speed limit sign.
So if it needs moved and you can't get it moved, will
I
NDOT
said-
have to move it?
We
or-
can just, I'd say we should just be able to take it off the pole.
So the street department's gonna help you with that.
Yeah, I talked to Ronnie about that.
I got your email. We'll talk to you about a few things on that.
That's fine. That's all I've got. I say I am waiting on Green Sign to get their quote back for decaling.
Oh, wrapping the vehicle?
Yeah.
Vehicle.
I say they are allegedly going to come up with a couple different designs like they did last time around what I asked. And once they do that, I'll
Are they gonna give you, like, are they doing a different
say
concept?
it's going to be different than the truck.
Are you using the truck too?
I say I have it
Take
for
off.
I have it for a couple of weeks, but I'm going to switch here on Thursday and start driving the truck again.
I'd say maybe it might not be bad, whatever, if you're waiting on green sign, they're gonna send you a couple different ideas for wraps, maybe shoot at least a few.
Oh, I'll send
Before
send
just to make
everything
sure
to you
it's
guys before.
All in line with branding and everything we're doing, yeah.
So. They've got our decal. They know what we're kind of looking for. So that's all I've got.
You need anything from us? Thank you.
Make a motion to adjourn.
I second the motion. All in favor?